Hello, my name is Erica Allen, and I'm continuing with my YouTube channel mainly as I'm practicing public speaking and a research project that the public is quite involved in, whether they like it or not. So yeah, welcome. The topics I usually talk about are my life surviving gang trafficking by my own family. My brother just watched my videos and he was upset, yelling at me. Because yeah, it's embarrassing, not that it happened to me and I'm talking about it, it's embarrassing that that's what your dad and your uncles and your aunties have done and are still currently doing actually. I don't think any of them went to jail for raping kids. Moving on, it's a really good article related to it. So my dad is Warlock, but my uncles and neighbors are Hells Angels. There's a court case from Eveleth, Minnesota, an arrest of the Hells Angels president and 4 others in December of 2023. It was just dismissed last summer because of witness intimidation. So, moving forward though, to other things besides these silly meth gangs like the Hells Angels and the Warlocks, who there's nothing valorous about them. I was just in an AA group online. This one was out of Helena, Washington. And I told my story and one of the guys goes, "Oh, well, you know, Hells Angels, they do go stay sober. A lot of them are sober." As if that was I would rather have somebody be drunk and not a gang member that traffics meth and people than be sober and a gang member that traffics meth and people. And so, yeah, you get that a lot. There's also a pastor here in northern Minnesota who's just an open gang member. Yeah. So no, gangs are not well-regulated militias. Well-regulated militias are people who are public about what they're doing, whose membership is public. That's how it stays organized and well-regulated. It's transparent. Anyway, I'm doing that argument for another class. And then I just wanted to talk more about my larger history project on the history of chemistry. I'm going to start though with a speech I've been working on by my uncle or cousin, Calvin Coolidge. He was president in 1920s. I just messaged the foundation today because I want to know which one it is. And I have my ancestry and I know where my Coolidge line is. And so I wonder if his is public, and then also I'm pretty sure my Coolidge line goes back to my revolutionary ancestry, and so I want to see Calvin and quite frankly all presidents' line back to their revolutionary ancestry, where they do and do not have it, because migrations can tell the truth often when people do not. Okay, so this is his 1924 speech on taxation, and it brought me to tears this morning. Okay, let me try. No, I won't practice in front of the camera. I'm just gonna read it. This country needs every ounce of its energy to restore itself. The costs of government are all assessed upon the people. This means that the farmer is doomed to provide a certain amount of money out of the sale of his produce, no matter how low the price, to pay his taxes. The manufacturer, the professional man, the clerk, must do the same from their income. The wage earner, often at a higher rate when compared to his earning, makes his contribution perhaps not directly, but indirectly in the advance cost of everything he buys. The expenses of government reach everybody. Taxes take from everyone a part of his earnings and force everyone to work for a certain part of his time for the government. I love that part the most because, yeah, we all work for the government. And hopefully that makes people feel like they have to be active in politics. It is not a choice. The Declaration of Independence says quite clearly, if you want these rights, this is your duty. It doesn't say get comfortable and forget that, power will abuse itself. And so, or people will abuse power. Yeah. So I love that part. Everybody works part-time for the government. When we come to realize that the yearly expenses of the governments of this country, the stupendous sum of about $7,500,000,000 is needed by the national government and the remainder by local governments. So this is 1924. So in 1924, $6,500,000,000 was going to local governments. I wish Calvin would have said which ones, but I'm sure he was trying to be diplomatic. His son died around this time in a car crash. I'm just saying, always interesting when politicians' children die in car crashes when they're doing things that big government doesn't like. $6,500,000,000 in 1924 was going. I'm going to assume it was Roosevelt's huge fucking public works projects. I'm also going to assume it was just theft by certain cities throughout the country, probably in certain political ideations, the Democrat Party. So $500 million was needed by the national government in 1924. I'm going to spend so much time on this phrase. Another reason I'm doing this is because there was a Afghan veteran who was the co-worker, fellow soldier of a man I had been dating and planning children with back in 2020. And he got shot in the face and died in his MRAP next to my ex who was driving in 2011. He loved Ron Paul and he wanted to see the Federal Reserve audited. And I was like, I got you, buddy, in 2022. I'm still not there and nobody else seems to really be doing it. That'd be great. It's harder than it looks, but for me, I'm pretty confident we'll get there. There's going to be a lot of a specific kind of math. I can tell you that much. A lot of back and forth, a lot of inverse, a lot of zeroed. A lot of things become zeroed out, and anyway, I'll let you guys know. It takes me a minute to get back into my math brain, but it's one of my favorite places to be. Yeah. So anyway, $6,500,000,000 to local governments, $500 million was to the national government, 1924. Also, wouldn't want to forget to mention that prohibition is going on at this time, so it's an obvious gang nature run economy, truly. Back to Calvin. Such a sum is difficult to comprehend. It represents all the pay of 5 million wage earners, receiving $5 a day, working 300 days in the year. If the government should add $100 million of expense, it would represent 4 days more work of these wage earners. These are some of the reasons why I want to cut down on public expense. And I also want to know what wage earners President Coolidge was talking about, because he separates the clerk from the wage earner. He separates, or is he calling the manufacturer, the professional man, the clerk, the wage earner? Yes, okay, because the farmer is the producer, because we were still pretty grain heavy in the 1920s. Prohibition did not help that. Definitely affected the demand of grain. So he looks like he separates the farmer, and then the wage earners are the manufacturer, the professional man, and the clerk. Although I think the wage earner, he might then just mean the laborer. I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna definitely talk to somebody at the Coolidge Foundation more about this, because I'm sure they have so many people who've done research on it. So that'll be good to, I'll look forward to be doing that. These are, back to Calvin. These are some of the reasons why I want to cut down on public expense. By the way, the video on YouTube, it's by a company called DeForest Phonics, or DeForest, whatever it is. And on their caption, before it's the video of Calvin giving this speech, it says October 18th, 1924. But this is from AmericanRhetoric.com. One of the only written copies I could find printable online, doing a quick search. And it was transcribed by Michael E. Eldenmuller, copyright 2010. And this is saying that it was from August 11th, 1924. So the date of when it really happened is in question for me. Okay, the very last part of it. I want the people of America to be able, I'm not laughing, I was crying at this one earlier. I am laughing now. I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Self-determination. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty. These results are not fanciful, they are not imaginary, they are grimly actual and real, reaching into every household in the land. They take from each home annually an average of over $300, and taxes must be paid. They are not a voluntary contribution to be met out of surplus earnings. They are a stern necessity. They come first. It is only out of what is left after they are paid that the necessities of food, clothing, and shelter can be provided, and the comforts of the home secured, or the yearnings of the soul for a broader and more abundant life gratified. When the government effects a new economy, it grants everybody a life pension with which to raise the standard of existence. It increases the value of everybody's property, raises the scale of everybody's wages. One of the greatest favors that can be bestowed upon the American people is economy and government. Then my uncle died. Hoover took over. He was died / murdered. Hoover took over. Or he just, no, he didn't want a third go of it. I don't remember now. I just know that one of his sons did die. And he was young. Yeah, and then we fought a war for Europe. After having just fought a war for Europe. And we fought another war for Europe and the Jews. And then we fought another war for Europe and the Jews. And so it's so interesting because yeah, it was crazy. Back then they had 65 days off a year. Because when you farm naturally, you know, you have to obey the seasons. Even cotton pickers didn't work all year long. That's not how cotton grew. So So yeah, what would he say now? I mean, I think he would probably present the numbers and just hope that people would wake up to reality. You can't have an outsourced government and then be an independent government. So no, you don't get to have slave labor from Asia. You don't get to have all this slave labor from Asia and then cry about the taxes you pay the government. You just don't get to do that. What you can do is you can start to realize that we really are still in our homesteading phase. Actually, we were rudely interrupted in our homesteading phase in 1865 in the Homestead Act. And the usurpations, to use one of my favorite words from the Declaration of Independence, came from where they usually come, and that is from those closest to you, those who you trust the most, and those who are the best at lying to your face. And yeah, that's kind of where we really are, which is fascinating because I'm on this bright ass light. I just got a ring light, which is why I'm glad I'm using it. And I felt like getting back to this today. Have a printer, laptop, phones. I have even this technology to have 30 grams of protein in this plastic bottle that got delivered to my door with I'm just reading the ingredients real quick. I just don't have anything else to compliment the ingredients list. It's fine. There's like, there's 5 grams of fiber in it. Oh, that's the inulin. I was like, where's the fiber coming from? The inulin. Yeah. So to get back to people owning their own industry, it's going to require a very painful, long period of time where people choose to sacrifice for the future of their children and grandchildren, accepting the reality that they might not be able to be as comfortable as they might like. Or really though, the problem is like, because for all that happened to me, I still grew up with the idea of freedom. I just had large periods of my life where I was like, no, I go where I want to go, actually, and I ask what I want to ask, and I do what I want to do, and it did literally kill me at least a couple times. I know I flatlined once for sure, and then one time I just woke up and I was like, oh, jeez, still here. And so even for all that, I still like feel like I gotta live like part of that liberty, and that is something that I feel like a lot of people don't like. They see freedom as like, freedom, I'm going to go on vacation where I want to go on vacation. Or a lot of people see freedom just, I'm going to say what I want. I don't think people realize how much they really do just want to live off of their own land, and how that's like actually the most effective plan against this absolute tyranny. And we, like, all the evidence that needed to come out, I feel, for the common public has, where we've been a country of pedophiles using children for blackmail and political bargaining on a massive scale on both political parties. So we are at ultimate tyranny. You don't get more tyrannical than using the sex abuse of children to meet your political or law enforcement ends. And so, like I said to the FBI when I did my most recent Freedom of Information Act request, because I've been interviewed by them a number of times, If it's not the, like, I'm having a hard time finding a good church. I do believe in Jesus. I am more American, like Declaration of Independence is my scripture, than I am anything. But I said to them, like, I hope it is the plagues, actually. Like, yeah, all right, let's go biblical. Let's do the plagues. It's hard to lie when you're, you know, facing a plague. And so I don't mean that. I obviously want to be solution-based. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think people will crave the truth. I think people will reject AI. They already are. And I think people really are going to want to just return to that real life of, you know, knowing somebody down the road who milks cows or sheep or goats, or a wood maker or a blacksmith, like anything real, and not made by Asian slavery. And then maybe that's where I'll end it. And I guess my cliffhanger will be back to the history of chemistry. As I do jump around, I'm just trying to, you know, organize myself here and be consistent. So my most recent videos, and my mom did watch one too, and she was like, I don't get it. And I was like, okay, it's a rough draft. I'm trying to build up and then consistently build up so that I could teach somebody what I'm trying to communicate, assuming no prior knowledge, which is kind of hard with chemistry and math. So let me just start with, yeah, I'm gonna actually just start here. So I'm on page 2 of Seeing Further. I did purchase the book by Bill Brinson because I was talking about the history of the Royal Society, and it was exactly what I needed as a source for my history of chemistry, because they are essentially, well, competing with Chinese dynasties and Indian Ayurvedic dynasties, the longest standing, most successful medical organization in the world, founded in the 1640s by King Charles II, whose father was killed by Parliament because he was about to ally with the Scottish, become king again. Scotland then would have convinced Parliament, and then on his way to Scotland, he was killed by Parliament, English Parliament, and then his son had been in the motherland in France with his mother. And so his son becomes king. Parliament has no leadership because they're just a large group of people who, I guess, argue amongst themselves most of the time. So anyway, this son becomes king, and he charters this group for scientific inquiry, and the goal is to obtain all known knowledge in the world, with a particular emphasis on partnerships with enemy nations. Brilliant. It's like, what Parliament? I'm sorry, I'm talking to the Germans and the Dutch. I'm sorry, did you want to say something else? Okay, because so, and he did it in a way where it was seen as still being independent from the English government. So it was seen as independent from Parliament and the English government, but it operated as its own nation. And then why it's relevant today, this is probably the part where my mom, as the audience and others, need a buy-in, is they were the first body to build relationships before and after World War I and World War II. And he says that in here. I don't have that. I just got this again today after returning the other copy to the library. And so that means that they would have bargained with the scientists who were already planning human experimentation in World War One, because that's when Zyklon B was used in the barracks, literally just as an insecticide. So it already had commercial use in World War One, and then in World War Two, the experiment deepened. So it's my belief actually that a lot of the Jews, because these people were warned, that's why a lot of them were able to send their kids off on the trains, like people knew. And I think with a lot of the camps, you're gonna have to give me a minute of open-mindedness here. When you see pictures of the concentration camps, nobody looks like they're starving to death. Studied World War II for years when I was growing up, seen all the photos. Everybody looks calm and relaxed. When you're starving to death, you're in agony. Actually, it's painful to starve to death because your body starts to eat itself. And I'd also just read that Viktor Frankl book, if I'm remembering it right, just about like resiliency. And in this whole book, he's starving to death, but he's calm, and he's never actually talking about how much it hurts to be starving to death. He just kind of mainly talks about how cold it is. So, my assumption, because again, Zyklon B, World War I, commercial use, just a disinfectant, and insecticide. And then World War II, Zyklon B gas chambers. Well, that just sounds like a more controlled experiment, not just to torture people, but you're having a very controlled, if you look at it this way, as a science experiment. You have a very specific soup ration, small amount of salt, electrolytes, small amount of substance, and water though. And it's something consistent that can be measured. So you have this input, the group of people get put in a gas chamber, it's Zyklon B gas. Well, I would imagine, and I'm quite certain they were measuring out some kind of output. So I think that the experiment was for a purpose other than torture. I think that the reality is that in human experimentation, torture has been allowed because it's perceived as being for the greater good when it comes to experimentation. For example, even in modern times, pharmaceutical companies would have experimental things people could sign up for. And so a lot of times these people would go through horrific side effects, torturous side effects, but they were getting paid. And so I wonder if there's any documentation about people signing up or having been paid to be a part of these experiments. That's what I wonder. And again, the question that I'm going to be stuck on for a long time is the photographs really make no sense, literally just because when you're starving to death, you're in pain, and these people are not. In fact, and a lot of them actually seem like as they're dying, like it's hard for them to close their eyes. And in the Russian sleep experiment, I read about that a little bit, and there must have been several. It was said that they kept the men in a box and they pumped a substance through, probably similar to methamphetamine, maybe a little Zyklon B in there, so people think it's sick, because you don't want to you can't just have somebody getting a cold while you're doing an experiment. Oh, it's decided to turn off. Well, I'm gonna keep recording. So that makes sense as well, because you'd want to say like, oh, bacteria or fungus or whatever, I'll turn it back on, isn't a factor. So that kind of makes sense that as well, why they would use the Zyklon B. So they so they weren't dealing with a disease from decaying bodies or just, you know, people passing sickness to one another when their immune system is compromised. And that's what I'm thinking about today, as I move on with my experiment. And so I suppose I'm alleging that the Royal Society knew this. The Royal Society, maybe some fellows, because I'm not going to blame all the fellows. That's just what their members are called. Okay, so I'll stop that rant there. I'm going to read a little. I'm at 31 minutes. Well, here we go. I can tell you at once that my favorite fellow of the Royal Society was the Reverend Thomas Bayes from Tunbridge Wells in Kent, who lived from about 1701 to 1761. He was, by all accounts, a hopeless preacher, but a brilliant mathematician. At some point, it is not certain when, he devised the complex mathematical equation that has come to be known as the Bayes theorem, which looks like this. I'm still infant in calculus. I want to say that 0 with a line through it is theta. I don't know. Anyway, it's beautiful. People who understand the formula can use it to work out various probability distributions, or inverse probabilities, as they are sometimes called. It is a way of arriving at statistical likelihoods based on partial information. The remarkable feature of Bayes' theorem is that it has no practical application, this is the part where he's wrong. The remarkable feature of Bayes' theorem is that it had no practical applications in his own lifetime. Although simple cases yield simple sums, most uses demand serious computational power to do the volume of calculations. So in Bayes' day, it was simply an interesting but largely pointless exercise. Bayes evidently thought so little of his theorem that he didn't even bother to publish it. It was a friend who sent it to the Royal Society in London, 1763, 2 years after Bayes' death, where it was published in the Society's Philosophical Transactions with the modest title of An Essay Towards Solving a Problem in the Doctrine of Chances. In fact, it was a milestone in the history of mathematics. Today, with the aid of supercomputers, Bayes' theorem is used routinely in the model of climate change and weather forecasting generally, in interpreting radiocarbon dates, in social policy, astrophysics, stock market analysis, and wherever else probability is a problem. And its discoverer is remembered today simply because nearly 250 years ago, someone at the Royal Society decided it was worth preserving his work just in case. So I said 1640. I think maybe Charles II was born in 1640. Okay. Nobody had ever done anything quite like this before, or would ever do it half as well again. The Royal Society, it became royal with the granting of a charter by Charles II in 1662, invented scientific publishing and peer review. It made English, right, this was also important, the primary language of discourse in place of Latin, and then I think it replaced Greek in a lot of things. It systemized experimentation. Observe, record, observe, No, what is it? Hypothesize. So like you need a theory. You actually need to start with a theory. Then you need to observe. Then you need to record and observe. Am I getting it right? Is that the system? Anyway, it promoted Indeed, insisted upon clarity of expression in place of high-flown rhetoric. It brought together the best thinking from all around the world. It created modern science. This next part is actually important. I'm going to keep going. Nothing, it seems, was beneath its attention. Society members took an early interest in microscopy, woodland management, architectural load bearing, the behavior of gases, the development of the pocket watch, the thermal expansion of glass. So I am going to stop it there. Just want to real quick. So it must have been not set up by Charles II then. It would have been somebody else, and then Charles granted them a charter. Yeah. So in 1600, I think it was a French or a Dutch or a German guy, could have been an Italian, who isolated phosphorus. He had been collecting piss from his neighbors and thinking he would get gold, because gold is already, a natural element. People have more time for chemistry. We've come out of the Dark Ages in Europe. In 1300, 1400, Europe lost a third of its population to the plague. There was a lot of popular interest in science. And yeah, so he isolates phosphorus from piss, and then it reacts with oxygen and it explodes. And then also, just like, I'll end it here, that the biggest threat in chemistry is the entire list of compounds that can't be detected by smell or taste or color. Gases in particular are odorless, colorless, So I love this book. I'm going to go through it like a fine-tooth comb. And thank you, Bill, if you're still around. Even if you're not, thank you. When did he write this? It's not too old. I want to say it was 2010. Chose 2010. And yeah, we'll just, the last thing I did want to mention then, because I'm just building my timeline here. So it's interesting. So Bayes is born in 1701. 1702, nitrous oxide, laughing gas, is invented. And it's interesting how old the science to have a good, I can't pronounce this word, analgesic, and a good pain reliever. How those synthetic pain relievers are actually older. And again, that's like, kind of predicting, like, I'm, a scientific organization in Europe. It's very troublesome and expensive to go to war with Asia, to trade with Asia. Asia, of course, has so much opium. And so it's interesting how old a lot of what we're going through is. And I just want to be able to paint a more clear picture of that. Thank you for watching.